Okay, so I wanted to start by our row counts and the tubes that we're going to make the adorable green dragon. So I've made my belly gusset and I didn't put the green stripes in it this time. It's the fourth dragon that I've made. And I just decided on this one to go straight cream. If you wanted to put the stripes on, I did it in increments of 10. So it was 8 cream, 2 green, 8 more cream, 2 more green to bring it to 20, 8 more green cream, 2 more green to bring it to 30. And you just travel down the tube that way until you get to 127 for the belly gusset. So this is 127 rows on the 22 pin. The top of the dragon, its back, is going to be the same row count, 127, but on your large Addi or your 48 pin Centro. And this is going to be mattress stitched together. And that'll be done off camera to save time. So my tip is that when you start mattress stitching, you'll want to get your V stitches going in the same direction. But also, when you start that very first stitch, keep off of your cast on row because you're going to want to snug this tube up later by pulling this thread, and you don't want it to be mattress stitched. So I just start at the first full V stitch off of my cast on thread. And so we'll mattress stitch this side, we'll bring this around, we'll mattress stitch this side so that we're making our tube. Then we're going to make 4 paws. And the paw, I've already made this into a beanie. That's what we're going to do with it. It's 33 rows of your body color, 8 rows of your toenail color. So that brings you up to 41. Then you'll do the body color, another 33 rows, and you'll stop at 74 rows. Then we'll do the tail, and it's already been pulled into a beanie, and it's on the 22 pin. It's 40 rows. Then for the head, we're going to put the head together in a little bit of an unusual way. So I have 2 different sizes here, and one of them, which is the longer one, I just went ahead and made a beanie out of one end of it. I did that so that I would know that this was going to be my head gusset that starts at the back of the head, travels over the top of his head, wraps around his nose, and goes under his nose and under his chin. This one that's 70 rows, the head gusset is a little bit longer at 78 rows. This one actually is going to come this way, and this is the snout. So we'll just take the snout, we'll take both of these ends and put them over our 4 fingers, just snug it up a bit. We're not trying to make a beanie, we're just trying to get the excess play out of the thread. So we still want it to be squared off like this. We'll do both ends. Then we're going to take this longer gusset and we're going to, I just measure it like this. I just get my ends together, I come back, I find my centerpiece, and then I insert the round end of this gusset. I take my first stitch, then I just line up and I mattress stitch down the side, going towards what's going to be its snout. Then to turn the corner, stay 1 stitch back from the end of your square snout, and you'll bring it over, still mattress stitching on the head gusset, but I'll show you with my pin. You're going to come back a V stitch off of the cast on row, so you're going to be catching the V stitches that are 1 back from your cast on row, and that's going to give a really nice stitch. So you'll go under one of these, you'll go into your 2 bars, then back into the next V over, not skipping any V stitch. You'll go into the 2 tracks on your head gusset, then you'll come over and catch the next 2 V stitches. When you get to the end, you'll turn the corner and just mattress stitch your way, I'd say all but a 1/2 inch, because we're going to pull this down over the head, and we'll want to adjust it later. So my tip is, do not tie any mattress stitch threads off. Leave them hanging loose, because we're going to pull on them, we're going to tighten them, we're going to tie off onto them. So any mattress stitching that you do, just stop and leave your end loose. So you'll put the head together off camera, and when I come back on, you'll see mine put together, and you'll be able to see, what the shape is. So that's our two body tubes that are 127 rows, our 4 paws that are 33, 8, 33, our head that's 70, and our head gusset that's 78. So I'm going to go off camera and sew these together, and when I come back, I'll show you what they look like. Okay, so I have mattress stitched my tummy gusset to the top of the dragon tube. I pulled these really, really snug, and I'm going to be real. I have a couple tucked stitches up on this end, but I know, because this is my 4th dragon, that it's going to go up into the head. It'll never show. So I just kept on going with it. And I mattress stitched all the way to the end. We're pulling the mattress stitches really snug. Unlike a blanket where you pull it and then you tug on it to loosen it up, we're pulling it snug because we don't want it to separate apart when we stuff our tube. And I'm leaving them loose. So now for the head, what we left off on the last video, a few minutes ago, discussing how it went together. So on the longer tube that was 78 rows that we cinched the top up like a beanie, I started mattress stitching around. And it's such a nice mattress stitch, you can't see where it is. But I just mattress stitched around right here. So what I wanted to get on and show you was how to come down the snout. So before we do that, we're going to take our tail, and we cinch these up over like 4 fingers to take up the slack. And then I'm going to take that tail and just whip stitch this around. Even if you just take 4, the purpose of it is to keep it from the back part of the tube from sliding back in when we're stuffing it, because then it'll be just like it's a single layer and you'll see the stuffing in there, and we don't want that. So I have stitched to the nose on this side of the tube, and this is my actual side of the head, like where the eye would go in. Then I took a new thread of yarn and came down the other side and stopped just short of the snout, because I wanted to show you how we're going to do the snout. So I'm under my 2 bars right here, and I'm going to come up under my 2 bars, and even if it has to be 1 bar, don't get under the V-stitch that's wrapping around the cast on thread. So I'm going to come up through and snug it up. Now what I'm doing is I'm turning and coming down this way, and I continue to mattress stitch in my head gusset, but now on the side of the snout, I'm in my top tube right here, so meaning that I came out right here so that I can start sewing across. So I'm going to come down into my head gusset and pick up just a stitch to get on top here, pull it snug, and now when I wrap it around to make that nice square snout, I'm going to go under this V-stitch, the one that is just right back off of the V-stitch that's going around my cast on thread. I want to pick that same stitch going across every time, and I don't want to skip any stitches. So I'm going to go under the V-stitch, then come back into my head gusset and go under 2 bars. Then I'm going to come back down onto my top of my head, the side of the head, and I'm going to pick up the next 2 bars of that V-stitch. Back into the 2 bars, and not miss any V-stitches. So this is the V-stitch that goes around my cast on, so I'm coming back 1 into the 2 bars, back onto headpiece, got a V-stitch that's 1 back. Just stay on the same row. If you decided to go back 2 V-stitches, that's fine too. Just consistently be in the same row of V-stitches. Anyway, so just moving right along here. Don't miss any V-stitches or you'll get a pucker. Up, consistently 2 bars and a V-stitch. Okay, so here's my last V-stitch that I can take before we're turning. So I'm going to come through here and I want to show you how nice this closes up. So here we go. Excuse me. Just pulling it nice and snug. And there's a nice squared off snout. And so I would continue on to come under its chin. Since I ended up under a V-stitch, I'll come over here and stay in the same track you've been in all since the beginning. Go into there. Now, when I turn the corner right here, I'm going to just start mattress stitching. So my stitches are, V's are headed this direction. So I'm going to find the row where the V's are also heading that direction. And I'm going to go, here's where I came out. So I'm going to go under these 2 bars, up, go under these 2 bars, and I'm mattress stitching again. Easy peasy. And the reason because this is the part of the gusset that's going to go under the chin, I just leave about 1 or 2 bars undone so that it's easier to slide it over the head, the neck, the top of the neck, because that top of the neck tube is going to go all the way to the top of this. It's going to slide down over it, and you'll see that when we do it. So once again, now here we're squaring it off by pulling it snug, and get that extra little tug on it so that you're really closing it up all the way. And now that is the squared off snout. And you can see that this is going to be the neck. When this rest of this is sewn on, then here's the snout, here's the top of the head. I'm going to flip it over, and here's the neck area where we slide this down over the tube that's coming up from its chest. Okay, so that's the tip. And I wanted to show you what this head looks like now that we've sewn it. The mattress stitches are all kept loose. We're snugging them up nice and tight. I'm not tying anything off. And this is actually the neck, so it's going to sit like this. And we'll make a decision here pretty soon where we're going to put the eyes on the dragon. This is its snout. Looks pretty good. So now we've done the body tube, we've done our head, and now here is the leg. And you can see that this is where we change colors, so that will be the bottom of the paw. I have it already made into a beanie, so I pulled one of the tubes up in, then tied it at the top, tied a knot. It didn't matter if it's cinched up really, really tight up there, because we're going to roll it back like this when we stuff it, and that's how we're going to sew it on so that we get a beautiful rounded edge right here. So what I'm going to do is I have a needle threaded with white, and I'm going to just lay it up here, and I have 2 strands of, and it's not white, it's cream. I'm going to lay them up here and grab some stuffing from behind my chair, and I'm going to lightly stuff the top of this paw pad, pushing it up into the beanie top. That's going to be its upper haunch, and don't want to, completely overstuff it, but we want to give it some shape. So here we are right here. I'm going to put a little bit more in. Okay, and the paw, he has to stand on his paw, so we need it to be able to bend. So with my needle and thread now, I'm going to roll this back so that the green isn't showing, but I'm right on where we turn for our white. So its toes will be nice and long. Looking for any kind of tuck stitches, anything I don't want to show, I'm putting to the inside. Okay, so here we are. And I'm going to just go in about every other one just to close the end of this up. Don't even have to go in every one if you don't want to. Apparently I don't want to, I'm not. So we're just making sure that we get it shut And then we're going to put toenails on it. And so I'm going under every other row, coming out right here. I pull it, tie a little knot, and bury my thread. Okay, bringing it up. And I think what I'm going to do, just to save myself time, is in order to make these toenails, and there's 3 toenails, I'm going to tie this up in just a minute. We're just going to visually, this is like 3 rows, here's like 3 bars, and then there's 3 bars right here. So I'm just going to come over. I'm on the top side of my paw because my not the jogless joint is going to be underneath. He's going to walk on that part of it. So I'm just going to come up here, tie a little knot, then weave down into the bars so that I come up here, and then I can go over the end, wrapping it around, coming back up, coming to the front side again, and pulling it up, cinching it up like that. Tie another knot. Okay, first toe. So I think I'm going to just do the rest of it this way instead of, okay, so now this is 4 V rows down, and then that leaves 3 over here, so that'll give me a thicker middle toe. So I'll put a knot right here so it won't gather up when we pull it. Knotting it there, coming down through a couple bars, but stopping on the top side so that when we wrap it around, we're cinching it up. Flip it over, bring up some of these V's, pop back out to the front side, and snugging it up. Making toes. So there's your next toe. I'm going to come back under this green so that's not showing like that. Okay, and I'm going to tie another knot right here. Come back over one more time just to get that cinched up a little tighter. I like that better. And come over here, down, tie these 2 threads together, bury it. And here are our feet. One more step before we call this foot done is to thread our needle, and just to keep the stuffing up in the top of the paw pad, we're going to say this is where it's going to bend. So not going all the way out, just staying maybe 2 rows in on each side. I'm just sewing up through here. It gives it a breaking point and holds the stuffing up there. And because I like to tie off onto threads, I'm just going to snug this up slightly and come back through to get over to where I started and tie those 2 threads together. And my thread is over here, so I'm almost there. Just snug that up just a little bit, tie it off, and bury it. We do that 3 more times and we have 3 paws. Just bury the thread. Okay, one adorable little paw pad. And you can see about how much we stuffed it. We didn't just, overstuff it at all. And our most beautiful side, it's funny because the jogless joint almost disappears doing it this way. Okay, so I'm going to take the other 3 and make toes on them. Lightly stuff them and be right back. We have 4 paw pads done, and for those that feel better having a row count, I came up 6 rows and tacked it right here. And what I'm going to do most of it off camera, is stuff it. And before this is my end that has the tuck stitches, so I think I will just leave a bobby pin in here just for me, so I know that this is going to be the top. So what I do is, now the mattress stitches are still loose, and I've just snug up this top of the beanie just a little bit, flip it over, take out some of the play by finding your pull thread on here, and just take out some of the excess in here also. Not all the way, because you still want to get your hand up in there, but just so it's not so floppy. And then another tip is I take my mattress stitches and I bobby pin them up onto the top of the body without being careful not to mess up the stitches by splitting any threads when I do that. I'm going to do that on both ends. We are going to pull these mattress stitches again. We're not done with them because we just want it to be really snug and not come apart on any seam when we're stuffing and sewing on legs and whatnot. Okay, so now just grabbing stuffing. I'm going to work it in from both ends, in between the green and the white tube. And I also want to snug up this end of this white tube too on this end, and do the same thing on this end that we did down on the other end. Just snugging this tube up a little bit, taking out some of that slack, and start pushing it down to about the center. And I will come back on when I have my tube stuffed and we will shape the tube. Okay, so I have stuffed out the tube. It's kind of long. It doesn't want to really stay on the table. Okay, and this is our secret weapon. If you have a long needle, it's going to make it so much easier. If you don't, you're going to have to do this part in stages, meaning that when we're shaping the tube, we're going to bend it like this. We're going to get our shape. This is its rear. Then we're going to bend it up this way until we have a shape like this. So with the long needle, we can simply lay it down on the table and just jab it through. If you have a short needle, then you're going to go through this part. Then you're going to push this together as much as you can, and you'll get that needle through there. And you'll just do it that way. So, and I'm doubling up my thread to go through there because I want it nice and sturdy. It's staying in. And where we tie it at the back, but not yet, we're going to leave this in play too by doing it in a bow. Okay, so this is where we need one of our paws. We're going to bring it up and we're going to roll it back just a little bit. And we need to see where it bends on the table. And here's its haunch. So it might need just a little bit more. So here we go. I think that looks pretty good. Let's put the paw back down. And this is just twisted a little bit, but that's okay. We can take this thread down if we have to. Okay, and we're going to be putting a little more stuffing in the haunch. So make sure that your tube is stuffed enough that it isn't wimpy, if you know what I mean, because you want them to be not wimpy. So this is pretty snug. Now, to remember this, look how cute that's getting. That the head that we made right here is going to come down over the neck like a slipper. It's going to come down on it. So this is really right in here is where its chin is going to come out like this. So this looks pretty good to me. Looks like this. We'll make sure that we have our stomach gusset even. And I mean, so it's not twisted off to the side. We'll look back here, line up our stomach gusset back here too, so we're square. And we'll come back in and we'll definitely be putting more stuffing in here. So this is our butt. And we have our it's hard to do this, the camera's overhead. Okay, so I'm going to take my long needle that's double threaded, and I keep a loop on this end right here so that I can put my finger through it. You'll see that in just a minute. Okay, so when I come in, I take my thumb, and that's one thumb length, a second full thumb length. And the reason I don't want to go up too much higher than that is because when we put the tail on like this, it's going to cover up where we tie this off back here. So 2 thumbs, I think that's pretty good right there. And here's where we hope the magic happens. Pushing straight down till we hear that needle hit the table or feel it on the table. I don't know where that came from. And then we want it to come through straight, and that did not, so it angled down. I'm gonna give it another try. Don't always get it on the first try. Okay, that's much better. So it's coming through right here. See that poking through? So I'm gonna work it over so that it's right here instead. Just move the tip over a little bit. A little bit more, right there. And that's where I want it to come through. And I'm going to take my finger and put it in this loop so it can't get pulled through while I snug this up right here. Okay, Now, just do from front to back what we just did in that direction. So this just happens to be 1, 2, 3 in the fourth row over. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm just gonna eyeball that and come over about right here, about the same distance. One straight down, and then we'll definitely have to finesse it on the other end here. Here's where our thread is that we originally came in with, so we want to come out right about here. And look, we're high. We're high. Still high. Ooh, still high. Better. Okay, that's going to be completely hidden underneath his tail. Pulling it through and take a look at it. What my phone is doing, but here is what it looks like. That's why you want your tube. You don't want to stuff it so that all the stitches are pulling apart, and it's not, but you want it sturdy enough that it can stand up. So keep that in mind when you're stuffing it. Okay, so right here, I'm going to take my needle off, and this is where we're just tying a bow because we have a lot more to do. Put the head on, and we might want to come back and cinch it up a little tighter. We might want to loosen it. Might want to do, something a little different back here before we sew the toe on. So that's the bow, and that's the last time we're going to use this long needle. And you can take the bobby pin out. So here we have its adorable little body taking shape, and now we're going to sew the top hat on by rolling it back like this. So here's where you pulled it to make the beanie. And by rolling it back, you're going to get a nice rounded edge up here for sewing on. Lay it down. So you'll sew around in here. And the trick to make it look neat is that you're going to pick up a V-stitch back from the beanie, so on the curve. And then you want to pick up the next V-stitch, the next V-stitch, the next V-stitch, curving around. When you get past your curve, so like right in here, then you're just going to pick out your straight row, and you're going to just start mattress stitching, because at that point you're also going to be on a straight row on the butt of your dragon. So now that we've tied that, this is where we're going to put a little more stuffing in, keeping this mattress thread still loose, because we need a place to sew to. So we're going to beef this up just a little bit so we can mount that leg on there. Do both sides of it up to about here where we're sewing on. This is why I like to keep everything open on both ends, because it's never too late to fix something if you haven't cinched it shut. Okay, I think that beefs it up a little bit so that we can sew our leg onto this part right here. And I would do the same thing on this side. I might have to mute my phone. See, I really did get some pull out of that. Okay, almost there. Keeping these threads all out. I'm going to go up inside. Okay, I have hips to sew onto now. So with him standing up, this is the cutest little body shape. If my camera were overhead, you could see better how cute it is and how nice and firm we've stuffed this. So it's not, just rocking back and forth because it's so loosely stuffed. So we're just right at that point where we're not separating our stitches, but we're also, firming it up for its posture. Okay. Okay, so when we sew this on, and like I said, we're going to be rounding it up. We're going to come off a track off of its tummy, so we're not sewing its leg onto its tummy. So I come set this little guy up with the fold where his fold is, and then I'm going to take one of these threads from the beanie, and I've already tied that a couple times. That's going to be rolled back. So I'm going to thread my needle, bring it up onto the top, and I'm going to start stitching around by taking every single V, get under every V stitch. And that's what gives that really nice seam. And it'll be curving on the body, but I want to do towards the stomach first so that I can control. So you can see that we have the nice row coming down. We have a nice row coming down so that after I turn that curve, I'm going to be mattress stitching 2 bars on the body, 2 bars on the paw, 2 bars on the body, and I'm going to come down to the bottom here about where we're bending, and I'm just going to leave that thread loose for now. I'm going to snug it up, make sure I don't have that split stitch that's going to keep it from sucking up. So I'm going to pull it real nice and tight. Then I'm going to take this other thread and come down, go around the curve, find a track, my hand's in the way, find a track on the butt and on the leg, and come down about a thumb's, at least a full thumb from where we're going to be cinching this up. So not necessarily right where it bends on the butt, like about here. So we're going to do that on both sides. I'll come back and let you see what that looks like. So here it is coming up on the table. And so you can see that I stayed back a row off its tummy, curved it around, pulled it nice and snug, and it just gives the most beautiful stitch. Found my straight row coming back this way and mattress stitched it down. So straight. So now I have my loose end here with my needle. I'm just going to bend this paw up and just sew it under here till I come back to this thread and tie it off. Don't have to take a lot of stitches. We're just holding that paw pad down, holding it against its body. I'm going like I'm skipping a row of V stitches, tracks. We'll call them tracks. So I come over to where I started with this other one, and I'm just going to snug it all, make sure everything's nice and snug, because that's giving us our nice tight stitches. I'm going to tie this together, bury the thread. Oops, I got a needle on that one. Okay, burying the thread, tying it. I think I'll shorten it. If I can find my scissors. Oh, here they are. And I'm going to bury this thread. Okay. So now we have a second one to put on. Decide which part of the paw looks the best to you. There's always a side we like better. Okay, so we'll just once again roll this top of the tube back so that the whole beanie pull and everything is back at the back. And we're going to duplicate on this side what we did on this side. Okay, we are back and have both of the legs sewn on. They look cute. It stands up cute. I know with the camera overhead it's a little hard to see this, but I want to keep the camera overhead. Okay, so when we put the head on, it will pull this forward, and that's when we might have to come back and actually take a couple stitches right here. But we're not going to worry about that, because the whole reason I want to do these videos is that we control the tubes do not control us. So with that in mind, we have 2 more legs to put on. So find the side that you think looks the best on your paws and roll it back like you did on the back ones, and thread your needle up, or the thread, you can't see it because he's taking up the whole table, but I'm just threading my needle from my top beanie pull thread. And I'm just like I did before, I'm gonna be sewing towards the tummy gusset, so I'm gonna bring it up off the where the beanie was pulled and a little bit more towards the front, so we're hiding that whole beanie circle back there. Okay, so this one is going to be a little bit further back off of the tummy gusset than the back leg was because we wanted to split this crease right here. So we're going to line it up with the center of it in the crease, have its paw bending on the table. Then we'll hold it in place. And so right now I'm about 1, 2, 3, 4 rows back. But as I come around, I'm always going to do towards the tummy gusset first so I could control how that ends. Then hold it tight to come around to the other one. So I'm going to lay him over. The first stitch that I'm going to take is going to be onto his neck. So just straight down onto his neck. I have it held in place so that I'm keeping it back off that stomach gusset because you don't want his legs right on his stomach. So I'm just taking the V-stitches that are back off of the roll, where we rolled that beanie part back. Looking for these stitches next to each other. Under the rows on his neck. Give it a nice snug. We're about ready to be going straight stitching here. Just about past that curve. Take one more V-stitch and I'll be on the straight. Okay, snugging it up. Whoops, drop that needle. And now I'm going to mattress stitch because I'm around my curve. And that's what gives you that nice look. Okay, so just holding it down and doing 2 bars and 2 bars the rest of the way. Okay, so you get the point. Snug that up. You want to make sure it snugs all the way around. We'll go off camera to do the rest of it, but so then it's just too cute. You'll take your next string and bring it up a couple V-stitches so that you just started on the neck. So you're going to want to now hold the neck to the body, and you're going to come down just holding it snug and then working your way down on the inside. When you get about a thumb's from the bottom under there, just come across to where you stop, join it together and tie it off. I'll come back on and show you what that looks like, and then we'll do the same thing with the other foot on the other side, and you'll have all 4 feet. Okay, so we have the 4 legs on, and now we're at the butt, and it's stuffed, nicely stuffed out. Our legs are on. We've got our mattress stitches all hanging out here. Our pull string for the back part of the butt that's like a beanie. So what we're going to do is push our stuffing up in there, and we're bringing this back to join this. And we're just going to mattress stitch it around, just do the best we can, getting it nicely closed up. It'll come right together. So I'm going to do what I've been doing with all of the ends of the open beanies and whip stitch this together so it doesn't separate, because if this pulls back in here, then you're going to be, see my finger through there, and we just don't want that to happen. So let's just straighten this up a little bit. We had snugged it up so that our stuffing wouldn't fall out. This is a mattress stitch. This is the beanie. So we really actually want to loosen it back up so that we can follow along here. So I'm going to just quickly whip stitch it together, not even being concerned about going into every stitch. It's just to hold the 2 layers together. Okay, coming to the end, snugging that up just a tiny little bit, and I'd say I was going to bury the thread, but I think I can just tuck it up inside here. Now I'm going to give my mattress stitch just another good snug tug, and I can feel it snugging up still. Look at it pulling this down. It's helping to shape it, snugging it up. It pulls it together here. So I'm going to snug it almost as much as I can, just being like, not like a strong man, but I'm ready to tie this off now. snugged it up really good. So now I'll put the knot in here. And that, by snugging that up really, really snug, it did help shape that area right here. Because you're drawing it up here and making it come together. It's magic. It's like magic. So I want to do this side over here and get it snugged off before I start sewing, because I don't want it to be coming loose while I'm sewing. I want to make sure it's nice and snug, just like the other one was. I can even see it snugging all the way up into here. Tie a knot. In another knot. And I'll leave this thread out because I want to tie to it. I'm going to come back here to this back part of the beanie, the green, thread my tail up, it's hanging off of it, and do the same thing. Just whip stitch it together enough that it's not going to separate and show stuffing through there. Just kind of going through the casting stitch. Just quickly making sure that I have the layers, pulled out. I'm getting under both of them. Making it over to the side. Around. Tie a little knot. Okay, so now we're just going to pull this together. Pull our stuffing up. Pull the cream down to the green and stitch across. So I want to actually sew with my white, actually not white, it's cream thread. And to get a nice look, I'm going to do like I've been doing, coming up here and catching the V-stitch that's one back from my cast on row. Coming down here, I've got some mattressy looking stitches like bars that I can get under, so I'm going to do that. Coming up here, catching this, just working my way around, going through these stitches here. I might even want to pull a little bit of the stuffing out, make it easier to close. Not too much, just some. Okay. For these, pull it shut, and it just makes a nice little seam. Plus, doesn't really show. It's underneath its tail. So I'll bring this up, and I'm catching the V stitches on this one the same as I am up here at this point. And I'm not even concerned if I have to go under a couple of them to get it to line up, so it ends right. It's all going to be under the tail, out of sight, out of mind. So I just took 2 right there. And I have 1, 2, 3, about 3 more rows on its tummy, so I can kind of gauge down here how many I want to go under. So I'm going to go under a double again under there, come up to the tummy, go under the V stitches of 2 whole tracks underneath here, snug it up, and I'm going to tie off to the green that's hanging there. Pulling that thread, and I still have time to tuck it in to the green. Okay, and I can also tie off to this little white thread. If there's a thread there to tie off to, I tie off to it. Just makes it seem secure. We just have another little stitch here to take. There we go. Okay, so we're going to come under this last V stitch and join up to this mattress stitch right here. Tie it off, add some threads, and I have a secret that I haven't revealed yet, but in the other 3 dragons, because of the weight of the head and a concern that it might tip, I've been putting a river rock in its tail. Believe it or not, I have rocks all over the place. Outside my office is just a sea of river rocks, but I didn't think about that. So when I was in Walmart getting thread, I went to the dollar store because I knew they had little bags of river rocks and spent a ton of money on a tiny bag of river rocks. Went to work the next day, looked down at my feet, and couldn't believe what I was seeing. So here he is, he's adorable. And now there's one more thing I wanted to do, and I did it on the other dragon, and I like the way it looked, is I'm going to thread the needle up, and this is just part of controlling how the back feet, so they don't splay out so far. Keeping him, up on his butt. So the tail, how do I do this so you can see this? Okay, so where the bow is, our tail is going to be kind of elongated over that. So with the river rock in there, it just adds some weight and you stuff it out and you never know that rock is in there. But I thought we might do a test to see if it's really necessary by waiting and going ahead and putting the head on and seeing if it tips it over. And if it doesn't, then the river rock could become optional. So what I wanted to do is just take a thread, and you don't have to do it, just you might want to, like me. I'm just going to do this. I should have gotten my long pink needle out, but I didn't. But I can make this work. And I'm going to come out next to this paw. Whoops, unthreaded it. I'm going to switch to my long needle. But you can see that you can use the shorter needle and get away with it. Okay, I'm going to come to the outside of this paw. Right there. Just put a row in between there. And I do want this one. I'll just thread this short one up and get it to the outside. And some threads there. Here we go. Okay, I'm just going to get it going to the outside above where I sewed these rows, a little bit higher than where that was. Okay, now it's on the outside. Just about this far up. If I laid my thumb in the track right here where it bends, about right there on both sides. A little bit higher on this side for some reason. But so I'm going to come back through and come out right about here. Just going to try this because I did it on one of the other dragons and I liked how it drew his butt up. I thought it gave him a better posture. So it's all just trial and error. We're going to sit him down. And if we pull on these, it kind of pulls his back feet together somewhat, which I kind of like. So then when we tie this off, it's just kind of in the crease of his paw. So as usual, I'm going to make it a bow till I decide if I want to snug it up a little bit more, what I might want to do with it. Okay, so there we go. I'm going to take this bobby pin off because I know this is the top. So here is where we're going to find out what's going to happen when we put the head on. So we're going to take our head and see if we can see this on, maybe if I lay him down, it's going to come back him up. I'm going to pop his head in here and it's going to go on like we're putting a slipper on. I'm going to take this pin out because I have to do something with these mattress stitches. Jumping the gun here. Just wanted to get that head on there. Okay, so I'm going to just grab a tiny little bit more stuffing and we're going to close this off up on the top here, and it doesn't even have to be all that gloriously neat. We're going to just pull our mattress threads nice and snug. Make sure we have this stuffed out. We're going to cinch our beanie up this time. Cinch, turn them over and do the same thing on the green one, which takes a little more pulling because it's a double. It's our large Addi tube. Okay. My dog is hungry. I'm going to have to stop and feed him in a minute. Okay, so I have our mattress stitches up here, and we're going to just tie some of this stuff together. So with this white one and the green one cinched together, I'm going to tie them together because all this is hiding up in the head. We're just keeping it all together up here. Maybe give it a double knot. Then I'm going to take my threads I mattress stitched with and tie one of them to each of these two threads here that are available from the ends of the beanies. Tie them together. So we'll keep that mattress stitch snug. Tie this one to the next available thread. Then we'll slip the head on. And all these threads can hide up inside its head. We're not sewing with these threads. So we'll just cut them off a couple inches long. And now here's the front, this front throat. Here's our head, and this is the throat. So it goes on this way. Okay. And it's tipping. It's tipping. Even, because one of the last things we do is sew right here. So let's see if it happens if we can control. Put a pin in here. He still wants to tip. Okay, so it's just too cute. We still want to do the river rock. And let me lay him down so you can see his head on there. Okay, so yeah. By the time we put stuffing in the nose, I think it could be a real problem. So I like the way that fits. I'm going to put him down. And remember I said in the beginning not to mattress stitch this all the way to the end till we tested it out on its neck. But it's going on nice, so let's mattress stitch this all the way down to the end on each side. Just finish it going under these last couple of bars. Bars, 2 more bars, snugging it nice and tight, making sure that everything is nice, that you don't see any loose stitches up there. And we'll do the same thing with this side. Only this side just has just another stitch and a half to take. Now we're up at the top. Go in one stitch here and snug it up. Okay. Now I have 2 ends hanging that I'm going to tie onto later, but we need to do the same thing here on this front neck that we did on all the other beanie tops that we didn't cinch up like a beanie. We're just going to loosely whip stitch it together. We snugged it up just a little bit originally, so this is just to keep it from coming apart. And 3 or 4 stitches. I might be able to sew with that. I can definitely sew with that one and with that one. So these are going to become my sewing threads. I'm going to lightly stuff his snout out. It makes a cute little slipper, doesn't it? Okay, so we're getting the shape for putting our eye on. So we're not stuffing it like our final stuffing is going to be. We're stuffing it so we can see, take this needle off, where we're going to put the eyes by giving it enough shape. And I'm going to just go off camera and go find my dragon eyes, and I'll show them to you. I got them on Amazon. They're adorable. They were $16 or $17, but there were a lot of eyes in there, and I've used several sets of them, and I still have a lot left. So let me end right here, go get those eyes, and I'll see you back in a minute. Okay, well, I found the rock that I'm going to use in my tail. Any kind of rock will do, and the reason I want to use a rock is because I know people have talked about putting beans in plastic bags and rice and things like that, but that's not washable. A river rock is washable. So just by popping it in there and putting stuffing around it, that adds just the the weight that we need to keep that little dragon from tipping over. So I'm going to set that off to the side and let's talk about the eyes. So I found these dragon eyes on Amazon. They were the pricey ones, and they had to be glued onto their posts. So I had to go buy a special strong, quick drying glue, and I think I got Gorilla Glue, kind of like the super glue, and I glued them onto their bases. But just recently, I found another eye that I really thought was cute, and it's just like for a teddy bear or something, but it has this little eyelid that goes around it, and I liked it better than the ones that have like the eyelashes and things like that. But it just makes it look more like a dreamy eye. Like even a horse has a eye that has the eyelid and an underlid on it. So I thought these were really cute. And then I discovered that this little outer sleeve would fit my dragon eyes. So I can insert that in there. I don't even know what size they are, but it fits in there. So what you have to realize though is when you put the back on, however your eye is shaped, however it's resting on your dragon, it's going to stay that way. It's not moving once you put it on there. So I think I like it with this wrapped around it, and then I use the backing for the dragon eye. So I'm just borrowing this part from the other set of eyes. And I think I'm going to go with these bright orange ones rather than some of the ones that have the green in them, because I just felt like the green kind of almost disappeared. So I'm going to put these aside. Bring our little dragon back up. We're going to decide where his eyes are going to go. These are on this side. Okay, so I put just a little bit of stuffing. I went ahead and whip stitched this closed. I finished my mattress stitch all the way down and tied off. Everything's tied off. So I'm going to slip this down. Even this is on the end is tied off. And I really want to shorten that down because I'm not going to do any sewing with it. Just be burying it. So I have the snout, but nothing up in here where the eye is going to go. I'm going to slip it on over the dragon's head. I'm doing that in my lap. I'll bring it up on the table in just a minute. Okay, bring it up. Okay, so my camera, being that it's overhead, makes it hard to stand him up and get like a shot up on him. So anyway, his head is on, and when it's all said and done, I'm gonna mattress stitch into these double bars and go under each row all the way around. Get it on here straight. Come across its chin by coming up off of that where we whipped it together, just coming back a V-stitch and bringing it down nice and neat like that. Look great. And there's a lot of stuffing that needs to go on in the head, but for right now, and then I'm just going to have to set this up. I can't do it all on the camera. I'm going to come back, and I already know from previous dragons, from its snout, that I'm going to come back. I'm just going to be putting my needle into the little openings of the V-stitches, and I'm going to come back 13. And I'm going to find the top. Okay, so here's my mattress stitch. Maybe I put a button in there so we can see where we're going. So this is where you can feel that it's kind of thick where you mattress stitched it together. So I'm going to get a bobby pin and just put into the first little hole and count 13. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. That just seems to be where I like to put my eye. A little bit forward from its neck, not too close to its nose. And coming down, I think I'll come down 3 into the middle of the 3rd row down from the mattress stitch here. I think dragon eyes, don't hold me to it, but I feel like they go up and down like snake eyes do. Okay, so I'm going to take it seems like there's a little heavier hood right here, and I'm going to put it right in here. Put my hand up underneath here. We just put a little bit of stuffing in the snout so that we could see the shape. And I'll worry about adjusting the way that the eye is going to be in here. I can't get my hand in here very good right now. So I am in the third row down, and I came 13 stitches over. So I'm going to do that on both sides. I'm going to pop his head off, put him down again, and get this post spun so that his eye is going the right direction. Make sure there's no stuffing at the back of it, so that when I put the safety catch on the back, and I know some people, sorry, it's allergy season in Deep East Texas. Some people see the curve, put it on this way, but I just put it on the way the directions say to, so that it's curving up towards the eye. And I'm going to just reach up in here. I don't have the strongest hands, but I haven't had any trouble getting these eyes to snap on. Gonna take a peek in here. Can't see. There we go. Okay, so it's lined up, and I'm just going to take both hands, and I'm going to listen for the snap. And there it was. Just give it another squeeze just in case. And that is on. Not coming off. Okay, and there we go. So I'm going to come down the same amount on the other side. Count right from the snout, count 13 back, and go in that hole. The nose is still stuffed a little bit. It's going to take more stuffing. And we want to make sure that when I put the neck up in here that we stuff up on the top here so we don't have a dent. So that's going to be hard to show, but I'll do my best here. We're going to put his head on just like it's a slipper, bringing it down so that the neck is all the way up here at the top. That's how we're getting a nice stable neck. Making sure that by checking our little front gusset that we're lined up on here. So here's where the mattress stitch came out, the other one. So we want to be on the seams. And we're going to have to add some stuffing up in here, probably a little more under here. Make sure we have, see, that's a little bit loose, but that was how much I wanted in there so I could get my hands in there and also put the eyes in. So let me grab a little handful of stuffing, and hopefully his head won't pop off while I'm doing this, because it did on one of the other dragons. So I might just try this time putting a pin right here at the back. See how that works. Okay. Such a awkward, so awkward. Okay, I'm going to be pushing the stuffing up onto the top of his head. And the more you futz, the better it'll look. So don't give up on it. Just keep your hand flat. Keep working it up in there, up over the top of the neck tube. And you'll even need stuffing around the sides of the neck tube too. But right now we're trying to get it up on top. Fill in his head up here. I have no idea what that looks like. I can't see up there the way I'm holding his head on the table. But we'll flip him over and take a look. Up here on the side of his face a little bit, into his nose. Strings out. I don't want to distort the shape. Well, he's got a pretty nice looking head up there now. A little bit on this side. Give him some cheeks. If you don't have glass eyes, you can always embroider. I even have used felt and just cut out the shapes, cut out eyelashes, hot glued it on, and it's looked really good. See a little piece of white yarn under here, just out of nowhere, shown in a green. Okay, here he is. I'm going to just get him facing me so I can see how he's looking. I know he's not on the camera, but he's looking pretty good. His head is nice and round on top. Looking at him from the front. Here we go. Make sure he doesn't look lopsided, because if you have too much stuffing in one place, it'll bulge it out. I'm happy with it. So I'm going to take one of my longest threads from the gussets from the side. I'm going to thread it up and start attaching his head. Maybe not completely while I'm on camera because we're trying not to have a video that's, excessively long, but down nice and snug. So I am going to start by pitching a bar. And since that's where my mattress stitch came out, I need to be right on here. So I'm going to come into these first two. And I am going to tie these two together before I start sewing across. Keep my head from popping off. Okay, so I'm just going to go under the V's of, you can see these, how the rows are. So I'm just going under them and getting kind of like I was mattress stitching. I am mattress stitching, coming across, going in under two bars, and just going to keep on going around. And I'm going to go all the way around. When I do his under his chin right here, I'm going to do just like every other time, go under these V stitches, but I'm going to come back one, can you see that one V stitch off of our cast on stitch, and the one that when we whipped around, we don't want to have those stitches up, so we'll just come back a little bit. I'll come back onto camera when we have that sewn on, and then we're going to put its tail on. We're going to know for sure if it's going to tip over, and we're going to do its adornment. So it's scales up its back. We'll have to crank those out because I haven't told you what that row count is yet. Pick some beautiful colors, and we'll get going on that. Okay, so head is on, and we have to stabilize its neck. So where it now, because of the weight of the head, wants to come forward. See? We're going to put his head back. Let me turn him over so we can see. Let's see which way is best. Maybe this way. So I'm going to come up maybe a thumb and cinch his head back. So standing him back up, I want to check his posture. So his posture, I want his head really to come back. I don't know how to make that show back like this. And I'm going to be sewing a little bit with the string. I'll be sewing like from here to here. And I'll do that real quick and then flip him over, and hopefully you'll be able to see that. Just line him up so that he's even, so he's not like off to the side or off this way. Get a good visual on him. And coming in, leave a tail there. And I'm just going to go ahead and tie it so I don't have to come back. Oh, there it goes. And then I'll just put my thread into where I'm sewing so it's hiding itself. There we go. Excuse me, it's allergy season. It's always allergy season in Texas. Okay, just holding it up, and now I'm going to go back onto his back, and I'm going to try to get under some stuffing, because that way you're not going to just be stretching your stitches out. Get under some stuffing in the neck, reach down and try to get some stuffing under, in between the needle and the tube. Okay, and pull it snug. You might have to do it more than once. It's not always, first time you get it secured. So we'll just see how it does. This head will stay up, I promise. Okay, already better. So you can see right here how we've sewn that. It's just the cutest little shape. Look at that. So I think I'd like to come down this way a little bit, and then I'll tie a thread on and do the other side that way too, because I'd like to close that crack up. Okay. Tie it off up here. I'll just bring this needle through up to where I started sewing back here. Finish coming down the side, but I do want to stand him up so I can keep track of what his neck is doing. Trying to get a little stuffing between the needle and the tube. Taking deep stitches. Definitely needs a rock. All the other ones have had a rock, so he needs a rock too. I'm just coming around, just a few more stitches, just so it's nice and secure. Pull his head back. Tie off. Okay, so that was a double row of threads. And I'm going to hide the end of this. Hold it. Tuck that thread away. Again. Okay. I'm going to make some magic happen with this rock. I'm going to go ahead and hide this back of his head, these two threads. Before we call it through with his face, we're going to put a nose on him, but not right now. Now, so that he can be more stable, I think we got to deal with his tail. So we're going to untie. Remember back here where we tied this bow? It's time to untie it. Don't let your ends get loose. Hold on to them. Okay, so we have ends. This is the time to stand them up and see if you want to snug them up even more. And I think that he was fine just the way he was. So I'm going to tie this in a good old strong knot and hide it in the tail. Going to get down into the divot when you tie it. I'm going to double knot it one more time. Okay, and that can just do that. Alrighty, so now I'm going to take the rock out of the tail, sit him down on the floor for a minute, and take one of the threads from the end of the beanie that I've already tied. Yeah, I did. And I'm going to narrow the tail down just a little bit on the end, for about 1.5 inches. Stretch it out. This was 40, so this is about 20 showing here. And I'm just going to fold it in half, like this. And sew about 1.5 thumbs up. I'm going to end it about right here. And the reason being is that then that makes this have a point that I can pull up onto the back to cover where we cinched him. For the first couple stitches, I'm folding it in half as much as I can, but then letting it just kind of come back up this way after we get up in here. That way we have a little bit narrower tail on the end. One more. And this part where we leave it open gets covered by his back scales. So it gets covered too. When we're not, bury it. This really long thread here, I am going to bring up to the top and sew with it. So I'll just come through my point, bring it up, and this would be my point. So I'm just gonna tie that right there, so I can start sewing without cinching that tail up. Okay, easy peasy. You're gonna take a little bit of stuffing. Put it into the tip. Take my rock, about the size. It's got a little bit of weight to it, but when you put it in here, the whole dragon does not feel oddly heavy at all. So I'm going to just put the rock in here, put the little tip down in. Not that it really probably makes any difference, but then get some stuffing all the way around it. You really can't even tell it's in there once it's all done. Okay, stuffing all the way around. Sometimes that rock wants to just pop right out. Last little bit. Push that rock down in, stretch this tail back out. Getting my little guy up on the table again. And we're ready to sew because I brought the thread up to, here's where we were stitching it together. So I just brought it up into the top there so that I can pull this forward. So we're gonna have to set him down and bring this right to the top of that divot. When the scales go on, it'll go down onto the tail and cover this. So with the tail resting on the table, I'm gonna take that first stitch right in the center here. Bring the point of the tail up. Okay, that's how we're starting it. I don't know if I can keep in camera and sew around this, but so I'm going to get underneath another row here on the body. Just start sewing along, and the tail will kind of elongate because when you're sewing in here, you're going to stay on the body tube, not on this leg tube. So where the body and the leg come together, you're going to be sewing the tail right in there, but on the body, not the leg. So I'm going to go off camera, sew all the way around, bring it around this way, just keep eyeballing it. Not hard to do at all. Tubes made for the adornment on the back of this dinosaur. So this one is about 80, 83. You could go up to 85 because it's really irrelevant. Just so it's in the 80 range. This one is 100. And what I'm going to do with this one is snug up the ends. And then I'm going to just go like over two, under two, over two, under two, all the way to the end so that I can cinch it up like this. This one is going to come up its back and make the scales. So securing the end like a beanie. Going to just put a little stitch here to hold it together at the end. And I can sew with this. Sew up the side. Do the same thing here. Pick out a couple really beautiful colors that maybe that you've been wanting to use and you don't have very much, but you have enough to take your 22 pin and make a couple tubes. Okay, so I like these colors together. These are much brighter, way more vibrant than what is showing up on the camera for whatever reason. So the way I'm going to make my scales to go up the back is to cut off some pieces of green yarn. I'm just randomly cutting some. I don't even measure, so look and see if you have any tuck stitches. I don't, but if you did, put them to the inside. And I just come up an amount that makes me happy. This makes me happy. So about maybe a thumb and a half. It's just how whatever size you're going to make your scales coming up. And I just pull it like this. There we go. Tie a couple knots in it and snip it off a little bit shorter so that I can tuck these in, and then do another one about right here. These are the scales going up its back, and they could be smaller at the tail, get bigger, then get a little smaller up at the head. It's your dragon, it's your decision. But I just eyeball mine. And since this is dragon number 4, and I haven't measured anything and they all look pretty good, I'm going to just keep this technique going. Okay, well, you've got the gist. So I'll finish tying them off all the way down to the end. On this one, what I'm going to do is thread a needle with one of the tails here. I'm going to pull this snug and put a little knot here. Fold that together. Then I am going to just start, pick a track, stay on that track. I'm going to go like under 2, over 2, under 2 or 3. Just don't skip so many that you start getting gaps instead of a gather. So I think I'm going to do 3s, over 3 and under 3. And go all the way to the end of this long tube, which is 100 rows. This was 80. I've gone as much as 85 if I wanted to go a little further down on the tail or up on the head. You really can't even tell when it's done. I'm back and I finished tying these off. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Then I finished gathering up this orange, and I ended up doing over 3, under 3, over 3, under 3, because I want to gather it up into a hood that's going to be at the back of our dinosaur, and it's going to be really pretty. But I'm going to do something that you may not want to do, and if you don't know how to do it, this is going to be beautiful just as it is. But I am going to take my crochet hook. I'm going to have to go find it. Oh, let's see if I can find a crochet hook that'll work. You don't have to do this, but if you wanted to, and I do, just find your track that, is opposite of where you're gathering. Make a slip stitch on your yarn and just come in on under a V-stitch. It's going to be really easy. Anybody can crochet. I truly believe that. Okay, so then we're just going to draw a stitch up under. Okay, just come through the loop, kind of snug that down a little bit, chain one, and just go all the way around by yarning over once, going into the double V-stitch. I'm not going in the front of the back stitch, just bringing it through and then coming over through all 3 stitches, yarning over, going under the V-stitch, come back through, and go through all 3, yarning over, going through, coming through all 3. So I'm going to go all the way around to the end and then come back again, and we'll sew the scales up the back. We're going to actually stuff each one of these little pouches out and then wrap this around. Be back in just a moment. Okay, so I have my scales made to go up the back. I actually did crochet around the edge. I'll show you this in a minute. But this is your last chance before we put the scales up the back of the body to make one last final adjustment on the head. And so I think that what I am going to do is just bring it back one more time. And I'm actually going to leave this thread doubled, I do believe. Just going to take a nice chunk out of his neck. Because once the scales go on, it's kind of too late to decide you wished you'd cinched back just one more time. And this will be under the scales. Take one more stitch here on its back. Pull it nice and snug. Up this way. I was pretty happy with it before doing this, but I just feel like I want to just make sure that its head isn't going to ever sag forward. And this is going to definitely help with that. Because it's never done until you say it's done. Okay. This should hold it nice and high. We want our dragon to have a nice high head. A proud dragon. Okay, and I'm just going to tie these off. Nice and snug. That's it, because the scales are going on now. Okay, I'm going to just snip these off, because maybe one more knot, and they'll be under a scale. Hiding under the scales. Okay, so I have the scales ready to sew on, and they're going to get stuffed. So we'll put the first one right here on its tail. I already have a needle on this thread. So I'm going to put a little stuffing in the first one. It's upside down. Let me flip it over. And I have its little strings that are going to just go right to the inside. Just giving it some shape. Okay, and I'm going to center it over its tail, making sure that I cover up right here where I finished, where it's got the little divot right here. That's where I'm going to start sewing on. And we'll do most of that off camera. But you just want to stuff each one as you come up to it. So this next one would get stuffed to make sure your little tails are tucked in, so you don't have any green strings hanging out. Okay, and we'll just bring that up onto its back. And keeping it centered, so all the way up the top of his head. And when you get to the top, just can't see it because he's too tall. But when you get to the top, you'll just kind of curve it up. And then we're going to come back and I'm going to sew up each side, just following the curve. And because you've stuffed it, that helps you keep your shape. So you can see your shape here. Just keep the nice little balls. And when we come back, this will be sewed up both sides. And I'll show you how we're going to put the comb on. And then we put on nostrils. And I think we're done. One more little thing where we're going to finish this little tie we put on the legs. I think I'm pretty happy with how they look, but we might snug them up just a tiny bit more and then tie them off and bury the ends. Be right back. Okay, His scales are up his back, and it's time to put his crowning glory on. It's going to be easy. I have the thread that I drew up to make the, I could move over a little bit, to make his crown. And it's going to go on the back of his head. I'll change the camera angle after I get this sewn on, and then you'll get to really see what it's going to look like. Okay, so this is the end that I was drawing up. This is from the center of the tube. This is my thread that I was drawing up with. So I am going to get a sherbet thread to sew with. And I am going to sew this all the way around. Okay, so I'm going to start at the bottom of this one. Let me see. Yeah, I'm coming up there. Okay, so just giving this a cinch to snug it back up. So I'm going to take the curve of the beanie and secure it here, and this one will be secured here, and then I'll just pull up all the slack and sew it on all the way around. So this is the curved end of the beanie, like where I cinched it. It just makes a shape that just wants to wrap right around there. So I'm going to go off camera. I'm just going to sew it here, keep sewing around, and then this is the other end of the beanie, and I'm going to tie all these off. This is the curved end, like where we cinched it, and that's going to go right into here. And I'll show you what it looks like when we get back, and I'll have a different camera angle so we can really see it. So let me get busy sewing. I'll be right back. And here is his adornment. Let me bring him down just a little bit. So he has this beautiful plate back here. Spin around. Wraps right around his scales coming up his back. He's just a little tall. It's hard to get him in here. But we have one more thing to do, and that is to take his foot right here where we had tied this thread way, way, way back at the beginning to bring his hind legs in. So I like it. So I'm just going to go ahead and take this bow out that we had in there and turn it into knots and bury the thread. And take the thread and run it up in his leg and cut it off. Okay, now this is optional, but I wanted to give him his eyelashes, I decided. So the way I do it is get a piece of felt, and this is a little bit thicker than some of the felt I've had, and I just eyeball it. I cut a little circular shape that I think is about the size of that eye. And hopefully you can see this. So it'll just fit right above the eye like this. And because he has that little eyelid going around it, I'm going to cut it just a little bit bigger to accommodate that. Okay, then with both pieces together so they come out the same, I just use my really sharp scissors and cut eyelashes. And I leave enough along here that I can run a little bead of glue. Just trying to get the angle right. Just to pop the eye a little bit. All the other dragons got eyelashes. Okay, cannot see what I'm doing. Isn't enough light. But I'm ending up with a shape like this. So I'm going to open it up, place one on this eye, and leave it right side up here for the other eye. I have a glue gun heating up, and hopefully it's already hot, and I'm going to just run a very small bead of glue along the bottom here, really small, because you don't want it to pop out onto the fur or his eye. And I'm going to lay it right on top of his eye. And just press down. So easy. Easy peasy. And there's his eyelash. And now his eye has more presence. Don't you think? So let me do the other side. Just lifting it straight up so that I know that it's going to be going the same direction. Of course, I'm left-handed, so I need to switch this over. Run a little bead of glue. And put it right at the top of his eyes. Line it right up on there. And he has eyelashes on both sides, so his eyes are have a little more presence. And black is a good neutral. It always looks good. Okay, he has eyelids and he needs some nostrils, and we're going to do them just like every other little animal gets a nostril. Come in under his chin, do about 3, loops to build it up a little bit. Do the same thing on the other side, and then he is going to be done. So I'm going to unplug my glue stick so it can be cooling off. I have a piece of black thread here that I'm going to thread up. And this is going to be so easy because it's just nostrils. So I'm going to come up under his chin and come up right along this mattress stitch line. Right in the V up here where we turned our corner. Leave him a tail down here to tie off with. And I came up in the middle of a V stitch, so I'm going to give him 2 full ones and the one that I came up in the middle of, so 2.5. And one loop. A second loop coming in out of the same hole. And a third one just so we can see it. Okay, that's 3. So when I come down to come across, that's going to be the 4th one. So I'm just going to come over here where I started the last one. And I came up in the middle of a V-stitch. I brought some stuffing up with me when I did. Okay. It's coming down 2 full ones. So it's 2.5. 1, 2, 3. And when I come in and go down to the neck, that's the 4th one. Coming out right where I went in. Okay. Okay. He has a nose on both sides. He has a beautiful hood. I'm going to tie this off and call him done. And thank you for staying with me. I hope you give me a like. I hope you subscribe. I'm going to always have more free videos. They'll be a little bit unusual, because that's what I like about doing the videos, is that it seems to me that it's a little different than what's already out there. And he has 3 friends that I'll show you, or that I have shown you in the introduction, because even though he's just now getting done, I'm going to now record the big introduction using him and his 3 friends. Alrighty, I'm going to bury these threads and call this done. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you'll make a dragon and that you'll take the time to really make it special. Pick out some beautiful colors for his scales and his hood. I wish you could really see these colors as bright as they are, because this is just a beautiful lime green. This is a bright, bright sherbet, and I think he just looks adorable. All right, thank you.